Technology can so easily feel like a necessary tool for parents to use.
But how can you have technology be used by your child in a way that avoids isolation?
That's what we're going to talk about today on our Sticky Parenting Podcast.
Podcast on creating parenting strategies that stick through the stages. Well, welcome back to the Sticky Parenting Podcast, episode 2.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Yes, you as well.
My name is Matt. I am the kids and preteen pastor here at Eden Prairie Assembly of God.
And my name is Natalie. I oversee the early childhood ministry department at the same church.
Yeah. And boy, more and more just tiptoeing into family ministry projects like this. Both of us are.
Yes.
So we're so glad that you would spend time with us. If you haven't already taken the time to like or subscribe or even share with a friend or a neighbor some of the content that we are providing, we would love for you to find us on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and do that. It was so fun to hear feedback, and specifically one of the aspects of feedback that we heard from people was that they had an assumption that our content would be specific to elementary age kids, and it really wasn't. When we say we want this to be something that sticks through the stages, we meant it.
We did. How about that?
Yeah, so we are hopeful that we can speak to parents with toddlers all the way parents with teenagers, and that this can be applicable.
Yes.
So
Indeed.
On today's podcast, as we referenced in our opener, we are talking about technology, and
this is exciting.
Yeah, just to have a moment of confession as we start. One of my least favorite things, and it actually happens on a Sunday morning, where my watch lets me know what my screen time was for the week.
You need to turn that off.
Puts me in a foul mood right before I'm teaching the Bible to kids.
That sounds like bad planning to me, but okay.
Oh, man. And it's never like I'm consistent. I shouldn't admit this. I'm going to have a lot of people judging me. I'm consistently in the 8 to 9 hour range. 8 to 9
What are you doing?
I mean, I am consuming like news, watching the news.
Okay,
I am,
sure.
I mean, that's probably the
8 hours of
social
news.
media is a lot, texting and just all sorts of things.
That's like a whole day. That's a lot.
A work day. A
right.
work day.
A whole work day.
You're right.
But I shouldn't talk. I mean,
no, you shouldn't.
This is confession time. I have a serious YouTube addiction. So I'll sit down and watch something on YouTube, and I'll get so focused that I look up and an hour has gone by.
Oh my goodness.
Hour and a half?
An hour of YouTube.
Right.
And it's not even TV. These are like short videos or, 15, 20-minute videos probably.
Yes.
Yeah. So
there I am.
We're both
sitting
flawed
on the bathroom
humans.
floor watching YouTube.
On the bathroom floor.
I don't know.
Just torture yourself.
Yep. There we go.
But as you're judging us, you may start to think a little more carefully about some of your technology habits and realize adults often lack self-control when it comes to technology. And so do kids.
And they're watching us. They're
they're totally watching
us.
So I think this is timely, and we really want to make sure this is not a podcast about how, because different people can land different places when it comes to technology. I love where we have landed on, let's talk about kids using technology behind a closed door, kids using technology, and you don't really know as the parent what they're doing. So I think this is hopefully a train we can all hop on and kind of journey together today.
This is
there are
fun.
common ways that parents use technology,
Yep.
and we should kind of lay the groundwork for that. For one thing,
Yep.
there are moments where we just need distraction. As
Yes.
a parent, you need
Oh.
your child to do something while you can
Yes,
accomplish
do.
something, whether it's paying those
Taxes.
Yeah.
Hey,
I
it's like
still
we planned
haven't paid
that.
mine. So
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. But I mean, you need a chunk of time to do your taxes.
Yeah.
Pretty easy to just stick a phone in front of your kids and instant peace.
Instant peace when
Instant
you're making
peace.
dinner, when work follows you home, you just need those distractions.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes on the entertainment side, maybe there isn't a task you need to accomplish, but you just don't have enough in the tank to be the entertainer for
Yep.
your kids. So then you're relying on apps and YouTube, different things.
Books you can read,
Books, yep.
videos, games.
Absolutely.
Yep.
This next one's probably more specific to the pandemic, but it probably still happens from
Yep.
time to time that play dates or
Yes.
hangout times with friends can even happen if you have a teenager. I'm sure you know if your teenager has a phone, there's some FaceTime going on, different things like Zoom, like you said. And then the last one would be homework.
Yep.
And just things that need to be accomplished now more and more and more.
And I think it's important to note that these aren't, we're not saying them as they're bad things.
Right, not
Reading
at all.
books on your iPad, that's a good thing. Having play dates, doing homework.
Yeah.
That's why, again, specifically talking about isolation
Yep.
is the name of the game today.
Exactly, because technology is not going away, and I don't think
No.
the answer is to, have your kids isolated from technology to a
That's
degree.
good. Well done. That's really good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
There's a reason we have a podcast,
Well.
apparently. But like you said, there are some dangers with kids using technology in
Right.
isolation. So let's start to break some of those down. Obviously,
Let's do
the
it.
most obvious one is content.
Yep.
Got to consider that content.
So the filters.
Yep, we know
Yeah.
there's filters on things
Yeah.
and ways that you can kind of monitor their activity.
They do, but not all filters will limit your interaction with other people, right?
Right.
And so that's something to be aware of.
Yep, and even some of the filters out there don't even extend to apps or social
Oh, sure.
media.
Yeah.
And so you may be able to see what they're browsing on an internet browser, but you have no clue what's going on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. I mean,
Yes.
you really have no clue what's going on Snapchat because it disappeared a few seconds ago. So obviously there are those types of things.
Yep.
You mentioned interaction with people, like even on YouTube. There's comments that you
There
can
are.
engage in.
It could be a completely acceptable video that a child is watching, but then other people that are watching are comments, and they can comment to you and they can
Right.
comment back. And we've got some ads that can pop up as well.
Right.
That we can't control. So a lot of things to consider.
I tell our preteens just the other day, I was talking about it, that on Netflix about a year ago,
Oh, right.
there was a specific Netflix series that was being promoted, and a lot of people had understandable problems with
Definitely.
this Netflix series, and
Right.
they were canceling their subscription and stuff. I remember during that time, a picture from that Netflix
Yes.
series was the
Every
background
time
of
you
Netflix.
log in. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so this is a legit thing
Yeah.
that is just unavoidable. And if we struggle with
Yes.
avoiding these
Which
things,
obviously
as
we do.
adults, yeah,
Yep.
whether it's I spend too much
Yep.
time on it,
Yes.
or whether just the content that we're viewing that we didn't even ask
Right.
to be subjected to, how much more so a
Yeah.
preteen?
I don't think we
teenager.
could have that expectation
Right, exactly.
for them to be able to police themselves alone
Right.
in their room with all that's going on
Right.
in that piece of technology.
The other aspect would be a growth consideration. So
Yep.
we've talked about the content, but there's also the aspect of growth. Difficulty dealing with boredom is something that we see
Yes.
over and over and over again from an adult perspective,
Yep.
but certainly for kids nowadays, difficulty dealing with
Yes,
boredom.
not being able to handle sitting in the car and looking out the window.
Right.
Or waiting on a parent to do something, having to have something in their hand to be able to get through that moment of no activity.
Right. And that leads to oftentimes a lack of creativity because they're only doing one thing when they're bored.
Yep.
And then another thing in the growth column of things would be just living in the light. And as a Jesus follower,
Yep.
learning to live in the light and not do something in private that you wouldn't do in public. There's a growth aspect.
Oh my
too.
goodness, yes. And you know, I have 2 kids I mentioned in the first podcast. One of mine is extraordinarily quiet.
Right.
And so it will always be a concern of ours that if he did happen to see an ad that was inappropriate, or a comment or something, that he would feel so much guilt and shame that he wouldn't want to bring it up. And so teaching our kids, you know, through a process to live in that light, to not isolate themselves, to communicate is super important.
Not internalize it. Right. So as we said last episode, pick your pattern because as we said, there are legitimate reasons to use technology, but as you use technology, as you lead your child in how to use your technology or use their technology, you are establishing a pattern day after day, habit after habit. And we had a cool verse in regards to that. Do you want to read Psalm 139?
Yep. So I'm going to read 1 through 4, and then I'm going to, at the end, talk about verse 23. So it says, Lord, you have seen what is in my heart. Boy, that sounds scary at first, but it's a good thing. Right. You know all about me. You know when I sit and when I get up. You know what I'm thinking, even though you are far away. You know when I go out to work and when I come back home. You know exactly how I live. Whew. Lord, even when I speak a word, you know all about it. And this is a good heart's cry. God, see what is in my heart. Know what is there. Test me. Know what I am thinking.
Right.
That is something that when I read it and I think about myself, boy, that's hard. When I read it as a parent, as you read it as a kids pastor, I want nothing more. And so then that makes me want it more for myself since I'm the one that they're looking at.
Amen. Amen. So what does it look like? We should talk for just a minute before we get into some tips, some things that you should consider on how you can avoid isolation. What does it look like to course correct? Because this one is a tough one to course correct on.
So even before that, if I could, we recognize that there are some days when you get to the end of your day that it's celebration time, that everyone is still alive.
Right.
I used to hate when I was asked at the end of a day, what did you do? What did I do? No one has perished. That's what I did. That's what I did.
Right. That's true.
So course correcting, I think is so normal and should be done often.
Yeah, you're not doing anything wrong if you're course correcting often
it's
about anything.
Going on a path and then choosing to look at that path and saying, I think we need to veer right or veer left a little bit. And I think that there could, I have felt shame in it before because I'm not doing what I think I should be doing. And so now I need to change it.
Right.
But I've started to change the dialogue in my head and think of it as an opportunity, that I get the opportunity to correct my course in the direction our family is going.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. And being able to do it often, that's a good thing.
What I have observed, just knowing your family as long as I have, you guys have family conversations.
Often.
And that's not necessarily unique. Hopefully it's not
Yep.
unique. Hopefully family conversations happen often, but
Yep.
they're not all families have those. And so that's a great, especially when it comes to this topic, I think to just halt life and create enough margin where everyone's in the room.
Yep.
Nothing else is happening.
Yep.
No other agenda. We need to talk about how our family uses technology.
And as a parent, I need it to be a family conversation, just from my perspective, because these kind of things get heavy.
Yeah.
It's not the only thing that's going on in my life. And I feel that when we're able to shoulder this as a family, go at it as a team.
As a team.
Oh,
Yep.
it feels lighter. It feels like we're going towards a goal.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel as much like a chore.
Yeah. So that's kids getting involved. Maybe parents steering and guiding,
Yes.
but asking the kids, asking the teenagers if this is our goal,
Yep.
living in the light,
Yep.
or just not putting ourselves in situations where we're using unfiltered technology in isolation. What are some common things? I'm going to do it as the
Yes.
parent. You're going to do it as the kid.
Yep.
I think that is so good. Can I read? You always get to read the scriptures.
do.
Can I read Deuteronomy?
I suppose.
4:9? You look
I
so
do.
disappointed.
I love to read them, but I'd love to give you the pleasure.
Deuteronomy 4:9, don't be careless.
Mm.
Instead, be very careful.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget the things your eyes have seen. Of course, God speaking
Mm-hmm.
to the Israelite people who have just witnessed incredible, breathtaking miracles of the deliverance from Egypt.
Mm.
Don't forget these things your eyes have seen. As long as you live,
Mm.
don't let them slip from your mind. Teach them to your children and their children after them. That's the goal. But we know
Yes.
that did not last long for the Israelites, and it doesn't last long for us, which is why we talk about course correction.
Doing it often. And I love the part about when we talk as a family. I love kid involvement. I love that an opportunity for them to speak into their boundaries,
Yeah.
how we're going to change things. It gives them ownership.
Yes.
So instead of just, we're going to do this or you're going to do this, another command, which, I mean, come on, they're saturated with commands. Nope. Let's hear what you have to say about this.
Right. We should mention one more quick thing, and
Okay.
then we've teased this out. They're probably like, come on, get to
Seriously.
the nuggets.
Yep.
Consistency. Once again, once your family has had that family discussion, and you've come up with some common goals, some common boundaries that
Yep.
everybody's going to adhere to, you got to stick with it.
Yes.
Parents, you've got to stick with it,
Yes.
which is tough too. If you can't have your phone in the bathroom as an 8-year-old, does that also mean as the dad, I can't have my phone in the
Right.
so
Right.
so come up with some
Yep.
common things.
And this is tough. We read I don't remember the scripture, maybe you do, about it being tough in the moment. But later on, it's going to produce something far greater than we can imagine
Right.
when we're going through these tough times. So it becomes worth it.
So these are some ideas that we kind of just bantered about, some things for you to consider, ways to avoid technology in
Okay.
your house. And the first one is just to break free as much as possible. There's that boredom aspect, that creativity opportunity, that not going to the device
Yes.
as the first option every single time.
And I had an example for the parents of little ones. I know grocery shopping is a hard one because
Right.
you've got your list.
Oh, I bet.
Maybe you even have a budget, a calculator, or something like. Do people take?
Gotta think.
I take calculators to the grocery store, and then you have a child in the grocery cart
goodness.
wanting and wanting and wanting, and so.
So what could they do?
Yep. So what they can hold the list, number one.
Okay.
If they don't eat it, that's not a good idea
yeah,
if they will
that's-
eat the list. But they can hold the list. That's a good one. Another thing that I've learned that kids like to do, if you can take them out of the cart, they like to hold a pepper. They pick a
Okay.
pepper,
Oh, yeah.
and they put it in the bag.
Get them
and
involved.
then you could count, like, say you need 3 peppers, 1, 2, 3 in the bag.
What color is this?
Oh, that's right. And then another thing is, I mean, you have to take each item off the shelf, right? If they could start learning how to take that item off the shelf and put it in the cart for you, like that would become their job. The first couple times is going to be horrible. Oh, it's
Right.
going to be horrible. But what a great thing for them to do, to be able to interact with their parents, help with a chore that happens probably every week, and then they can break free a
Right.
little bit from that technology.
For the older student, or elementary, even older, preteens, maybe, I don't know if teenager quite so much, but it's just some room time, time where they are
Yes.
playing, time when they are maybe in their room. Maybe nap time falls under this category, but they're not consuming technology.
Yes.
Just kind of bringing that
Yep.
into your schedule.
Yeah, and a good suggestion for that room time is having either the door open or the door cracked. That just helps create an environment, a habit, a
Right.
really good habit of well, whatever the opposite of isolation is,
Yeah.
openness.
Yes,
yeah?
exactly.
Living in the open.
Another idea that we have is just agreeing on some no tech zones, some areas in our house that we're just all not going to use
Yeah.
technology when we're there. Sometimes it could even be if you're going to use the internet, if you're going to play that game, do it sitting next to dad while
Yes.
he's on the couch
Yep.
or things like that.
Yeah, it fosters accountability.
Yep.
Again, it makes them not be so tempted to want to hide something if they're looking up something on Amazon, but sitting right beside dad.
Right.
And that can just be a good habit.
So asking yourself in that family conversation that you're having, what are some areas that if the child is there, they're almost always alone? And should any of those spots be off limits?
Yes.
The bedroom, we've already
Yep.
mentioned.
Yep.
In bed.
In bed,
In
some
bed is a
some
big
kids
one.
have lofts.
Yep. Bathroom.
Oh, anywhere that they kind of need to be alone. That would be a good off limit spot.
And we've heard of families where at nighttime, when it's time to charge all our devices, that charging station is a central place, maybe
Yes,
even in the kitchen.
in the kitchen. Yeah.
And so there's no temptation. And you know if that boundary has been crossed because
Yeah.
there's one less device in that area.
I've even, if I could add one more thing,
Yeah.
because homework is another issue. I've heard
Right.
of families having no laptops in bedrooms, and so the kids do homework out in the open. So like AirPods and noise canceling earphones are super important in that regard.
Those monster truck headphones
That's
there.
right.
Hey, parents, look for ways that you can participate in the technology
This
usage.
one has always been a really hard one for me, especially
Okay.
when it comes to games.
Gaming,
because I
yes.
don't like to game.
Yeah.
But I have a son that loves to game. So
have to.
I have to dig deep on this one and play Mario
Yeah.
Kart. And
Oh, my
I
goodness.
always get spot number 12.
Yeah, out of 12, right?
Out of
I
12.
didn't need to point
Yep.
that out. But so looking for ways for you to enter into what your child is doing. If homework is done in the open,
Yes.
like you said, maybe you can do some work as a parent in
Yep.
the open as well, which that gets difficult.
It does.
That gets difficult.
It does.
But
yes.
if the child is going to be required to do it,
Yes.
you're modeling,
Yes.
right? So it's something to consider. At
Something
least.
that I do want to say something that we do at home.
Okay.
Because I have a 16-year-old that does her homework out in the open, but she has her earphones in.
Right.
But she can't ever hear me. So I carry a squirt bottle when I want to get her attention. Just squirt up at her when I need her.
I never knew
leave.
that.
Yeah, I do. I do.
you
So
squirt
that
bottle your
means she can do
kids.
her homework out in the open.
fantastic.
She doesn't have to listen to us. And then when I need her, squirt, squirt.
That wasn't in the notes.
That was a personal.
That is fantastic.
You're welcome, parents.
Yep.
You're welcome.
And even looking for ways that can your child use this app in limited ways. And some of those things will just be boundaries that you'll have to talk out.
Yep.
If there are some, like, for example, Marco Polo or video devices that you can use this, but we're going to agree on Here's how
Ooh.
you will use it, who you will
Who
use it
too.
with.
That's
good.
Even deciding that together would be fun.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. And then our last idea for you to consider, number 4, get used to talking about your activity, training your child to ask for permission often.
Yes.
Not just feel like they can download any app
Yep.
and make that judgment themselves,
Yes.
but to come to you and have a conversation about it. That's
I
really, you
love
feel this
that
in your
one.
bones. I
feel
can
it
tell.
in my bones.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that's a part of the family discussion too.
Yes.
That you come to an agreement on those things, and pointing out again, our goal, especially if you've chosen to follow Jesus, is to live in the light. And
Yes.
this is not
Yep.
a police state type of a thing. This
No.
is just, we want our hearts to just be so open
Yep.
and soft and quick to talk about things.
As a family, you know,
As a
and
family.
with that, making sure that your little one, all on up to the teenagers, knows how to recognize those red flags that come up.
Yep.
You know, anything to do, something that has a chat
Oh
with
my
it
goodness,
would
that
be
is
a red
massive.
flag, because that opens up someone that you don't know
Yeah.
can speak into their lives, can speak to them, and they can speak back to them. Another thing would be anything that would be pornographic in nature. Anything that one thing that I've heard families do, that they tell their child, if they see anything,
Right.
any body parts that should be kept private, that number one, they close their eyes
Immediately.
immediately,
Yep.
close their eyes. Number two, come and tell us. You didn't do
Right
anything
away.
wrong.
Yep.
You didn't make that pop up or whatever. This might be a
That's
time we
good.
course correct, which
Yep.
again, opportunity, no shame, opportunity. So you come tell us, and then that creates a habit. Those just 2 little steps
Yep.
creates a habit of openness and living in the light.
Absolutely. So those are some really good tips, especially it gives our audience just a glimpse on how to get down into the practice of, because unfortunately we live in the day and age, this is not a conversation of just how to avoid,
No.
but when you're
No.
exposed to, what do you do?
Right.
And that's some good components of that family conversation for sure. And again, our heart as we wrap up here is that we are Jesus people, or even just people in general. If you haven't chosen to follow Jesus, haven't made that decision, none of this is bad for you to consider either.
Oh,
To
right.
just have those habits of living in the light, and parents modeling those boundaries for your child too. We had one more. What were you going to say?
Oh, well, and I just one more thing to add.
Yeah.
I think it's such a good thing when your kids get to see you apologize, or get to see when you know, I saw this
Yeah.
today, or I isolated myself and it opened me up to these chats or these ads or things that I didn't want to see. I mean, that is so good for kids to see you human. It brings kind of you to their level, and creates a conversation that you might not have unless you have opened yourself up to some failings that we have. That's good.
That's powerful for-
I have
for
woken my
kids to see
kids
that.
up.
Oh,
I've woken with a
With a
squirt
squirt
bottle. No, in
that's
the middle of
good.
the night, just because I forgot to tell them something, or I just
Wow.
failed miserably that day. They really loved that I woke them up too.
yeah, I bet. I can almost picture the looks in their eyes. So
Yep.
once again, our 4 ideas for you to consider: break free as much as possible, agree on no tech zones, parents participate as much as possible in that technology use that your child is engaging in. And then number 4, get used to talking about your activity. And we think even if you pick 1 or 2 of those and implement them into your family's approach to technology usage,
It's a win.
you're going to be glad you did.
Oh my
I think,
goodness, right? Yeah.
So, would you mind reading
Yes,
Proverbs
please.
15?
I wouldn't.
Verse 3.
Here we go. The eyes of the Lord are everywhere. That's a good thing, by the way.
Yes.
They watch those who are evil and those who are good.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. I think that lifts the burden too off of us as parents.
Right.
With that, we're not the only ones that are watching and wanting our kids to be in the light, but we've
Right.
got a God who cares and who watches.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It is. It is. So Proverbs 15:3, highly recommend in that family conversation. Use that to consider using that as kind of the standard that we're aiming for. That we are just looking to please our Heavenly Father, who
Yes.
sees everything.
He does.
Sees everything. So, thank you so much for spending time with us today. We love to be able to just have this moment with you. If you haven't already, once again, like, share, pass this on to those you know, subscribe. We would be so grateful.
Yes.
And in the meantime, God bless you, and hang in there. In whatever stage you're in, hang in there, parents. You can lead like never before.